Welcome in our friend Chris Denari. Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Cannot complain. We're talking in the break. Back in the day, you were playing pickup with our band Todd Leary and Eric Montross over
Oh
by
yeah,
West Point.
I used to. I graduated from Wabash in 1983. We got married in '84, and our first house was down the street from Lawrence North. And one of my friends was friends with Jack Kiefer, and so this guy had a key to Lawrence North, and we would go over there, and that's when Todd and Eric were in high school. So yeah,
Holy cow.
you think about those days. That's a long, long time ago, but it was pretty cool. And so yeah, we were just talking off air about all the you're going to Allen Fieldhouse in Kansas this weekend, and we were just talking about all the places we've been. And I was fortunate enough to do a game at the Dean Dome when Montross played, because when Butler, what Butler would try to do, but Dean Smith would try to do. Dean Smith would take his players back to their hometown for a game. That was something that he wanted to do. And so they came to Indianapolis and played Butler one year. And then I think it was the next year we went to Carolina. And I think Vince Carter was a freshman. You had Montross, Henrik Rodel, if you remember those names, and all that kind of stuff. And so I've done a game there. I've done a game at Cameron. But I have never been to Allen Fieldhouse, never did a game at Allen Fieldhouse. So I'm sure that'll be a great experience for you to be there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that on Saturday. It is one of the iconic venues in college basketball for certain, up there with Assembly Hall. It's been around for a long, long time. The tradition that Kansas has as well matches that of Indiana. So it's good to see programs like this play. Indiana played Arizona over the weekend. Those two teams had not played before, ever.
That's amazing to me. I tell you what's funny. Before the game last night against Golden State, we were out there getting ready, Quinn and I, to do our stand-up. And we were on the same end where the Pacers were warming up. And TJ McConnell came up to Quinn. He goes, "Hey, you owe me," because TJ played at Arizona. And Quinn just started laughing about that. He goes, "I don't think we had a bet on that game, did we?" Yeah, there's always, that's the great thing in the NBA. You have all these players that play at different places, and when their schools get together to play, it's interesting to hear the trash talk among these guys, because they have great pride for what they did during their college careers, whether they played there 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, whatever.
Jerry Stackhouse, was he on that team?
Yeah, Stackhouse. I'm trying to think, because it was a 2-year period. I can't remember if we played him in back-to-back years. In fact, when we went to Carolina, Montross might have been gone, because I think what we did is we played him like year one at Hinkle, and then it might have been a 2-year period where we didn't go back to the Dean Dome until like 2 years after that. So I remember Butler scored the first basket of the game at Hinkle. And this was well before Butler became what Butler is now. And I remember looking at the scoreboard saying, "Man, Butler's leading North Carolina 2-0. And I think the score was like 106-60 or something like that. Carolina.
They should have pulled Lee Corso.
Taking a picture.
Yes, call timeout, baby. Timeout, get the team over and take a picture under the scoreboard.
Yeah, but that was very early. That was the early 90s.
That still cracks me up, how you could be a presence of mind to think that quickly. I mean, I will laugh about that forever.
Yeah, but that's the thing when you think about, we were talking about great venues. Basketball and Butler and the Pacers have given me every opportunity. I mean, when I was a kid, Jim, I would play Stratomatic basketball, flipping cards, and doing games into a tape recorder. And then all of a sudden, I'm doing games live at Madison Square Garden. It's just been a real opportunity to do all those things. And I don't take any of that for granted. I mean, it's so cool to get to do those things. I've been all over the world because of basketball. South Africa, India, China, Taiwan, Philippines, London, all because I do basketball. And that's pretty cool.
K-Bro on his way to Vegas now to lay over in Charlotte. Say hi to my family, K-Bro. Kevin out there, the Gators heading to Vegas, I guess. Let's see. Rudy Boxer asking, speaking of Butler, how do you
Oh, I love
like
Hinkle.
Hinkle? I mean, Hinkle is also one of the iconic venues.
Yes.
Indiana's fortunate to have two iconic venues in this state, but with Hinkle being historic and iconic.
Well,
Not that Assembly Hall's not, but it's Hinkle's just so much history there.
And what they've done over the years, you know, I got there in 1989, and that's the first time that the renovation took place. And I remember when we were there, we wanted to make sure we still honored the legacy of the building. You need to modernize it, but you still want to keep it as Hinkle Fieldhouse. And then a number of years ago, they came back in and, you know, modernized it again with even different seating and those types of things. But it still has the same feel. I mean, if you look at a picture of Hinkle Fieldhouse, you know, where they shoot that from the corner and the sunlight's coming in the windows, honestly, other than the renovations, it's still the same feel that you had 50 years ago. And so you know, it's funny, Jim, because sometimes you take for granted, you know, I've had the great fortune of working, you know, turn forth the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 20 plus years. And, you know, I'll be somewhere and somebody say, hey, have you ever been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? I go, well, yeah, I'm there quite a bit. And then I remember when I had my office, when I worked as the marketing director at Butler, I had my office in Hinkle Fieldhouse. So I walked into that building every day. And there are some days you take it for granted. It just becomes, but then you step back and go, wow, I get to do this every day and be in this iconic building. It's pretty special.
What is, I mean, you mentioned Madison Square Garden. What is that the most iconic, besides Hinkle, most iconic facility you think you broadcasted from, been to?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because, you know, what was the Staples Center, now it's crypto.com. I mean, so many of the arenas are really cool, but they're multifaceted, right? Because you play hockey in them, you play basketball, you've got concerts. I mean, I think that's the neat thing. Even though Madison Square Garden is like that, it's been there for so long. And even though they've done the renovation, it's still Madison Square Garden. It's in the Big Apple. It's in New York City. There are a lot of great buildings in the NBA. I think the Utah building is a wonderful building because it really is built for basketball. The end zone seats are right on the floor. You know, when you're dealing with buildings like in Boston and Philly and Chicago, those end zone seats go way back because you need a lot of room from a hockey perspective, right? So I really like the buildings that have the tighter configuration, especially in the end zones. I mean, I think my two tickets are now on the north end zone at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, you know, where and I think those are great seats because they're not that far away from the floor. If you look at United Center in Chicago, Wells Fargo in Philly, if you have those same seats, you're probably twice as far away as you are at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So I think that's the beauty about a building like Gainbridge, about some of these iconic buildings, because they're built for basketball with those sight lines in mind.